Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've taken that stack of articles and research you've shared, and we're going to turn it into a clear, actionable guide.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into, well, basically an evidence-based roadmap for brain resilience, exploring how you can really future-proof your cognitive function.
And this is such a critical conversation. The challenge we're facing globally is just massive. I mean, right now you have over 55 million people living with dementia.
55 million.
And by 2050, that number is projected to nearly triple.
Yeah.
It is. It's the defining health crisis of our century.
But the sources, they shared this really powerful message of hope, which is, I think, where we have to start. The core finding is that this is not inevitable. A huge proportion of dementia risk is actually modifiable.
Precisely. The goal is to move past this kind of passive acceptance. We're not looking for a single intervention, a magic pill.
Right.
The research overwhelmingly shows that the most powerful protective effects come from adhering to a combination of healthy lifestyle traits. It's the synergy that just completely changes the calculus.
And this is where the optimism really hits home, especially for anyone listening who has, a family history of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
The sources found that combining these healthy behaviors reduces dementia risk substantially even for those people. It suggests lifestyle can mitigate or maybe even override a pretty significant genetic predisposition.
It means we have these powerful, highly accessible levers. And before we break down all 6 pillars of resilience, let's just highlight the 2 actions that stood out for immediate, high-leverage impact.
Okay.
That is, 1, the aggressive management of your vascular system, and 2, the total elimination of tobacco use. Those 2 things alone create massive protective change.
All right, so let's unpack this map. Let's start with the brain's own built-in defense mechanism. The sources called it the brain's buffer. Cognitive reserve.
So cognitive reserve, or CR, is a concept we really need to get our heads around. It's the brain's functional efficiency. Its ability to maintain normal cognitive performance despite accumulating actual physical damage.
So you're talking about things like amyloid plaques or small lesions.
Exactly. Think of it as like the padding or the redundancy you build into the system. High CR lets the mind tolerate more of that underlying pathology before symptoms, memory loss or confusion, actually start to surface.
And the good news here, which is a common misconception, is that this isn't fixed at birth.
Absolutely not. CR is dynamic. It's built across the entire life course. The research, it highlights how crucial early life is, where proxies like educational attainment show an 18% lower risk of dementia later on.
18%.
But, and this is so key, the capacity to build CR continues robustly, even in late life.
So if someone is listening and they feel like they missed that early window, maybe didn't pursue higher education, they can still make a huge difference right now.
They can. We found that late life CR proxies, specifically cognitive activity and strong social connection, they showed a 19% reduced incidence. That's actually a fractionally higher protective effect than in middle life. The mechanism requires that the engagement involves novelty and complexity. You have to genuinely challenge the brain, push it beyond its comfort zone to forge these new resilient neural pathways.
So it's not about doing the same crossword puzzle every single morning. It's more like learning the grammar of a new language or starting a really strategic board game or, mastering a difficult piece on the piano.
Exactly right. Novelty demands new circuits, and we can't forget the profound role of social connection here.
Right.
The research shows individuals with high levels of leisure activity had a remarkable 38% reduced risk of developing dementia.
30%.
And on top of that, risk was reduced by about 12% for each additional leisure activity they adopted. So you can see how isolation in this context is genuinely neurotoxic.
And that puts a huge premium on intentional connection. Okay, so we've talked about building the buffer, the software. But all that is useless if the delivery system is failing. Let's get to the hardware, the vascular system. Because successful dementia risk reduction is, at its core, cardiovascular risk management.
That is the core physiological connection. When we talk about Pillar 5 clinical management, we have to zoom right into hypertension. High blood pressure in midlife is identified as the single most significant modifiable risk factor.
And the sources pointed to a really definitive trial here, didn't they? The Sprint Mind study. It gave us a very clear, very aggressive clinical target.
It did. The study showed that intensive lowering of systolic blood pressure, aiming for a target of less than 120 millimolars Hg.
Less than 120.
Right. It reduced the risk of mild cognitive impairment, that's that kind of foggy intermediate state before dementia, by roughly 20%.
So the key isn't just treating high blood pressure, it's realizing that chronic untreated high BP is basically an accelerator for brain aging. Aggressive management is a real investment in your future cognition.
Absolutely. And what was stunning was that the protective effects persisted for 7 years after the intervention ended. It just shows the kind of irreversible microvascular damage we can halt or at least slow down by acting early and acting aggressively. We can buy the brain decades of protection.
Okay, moving on to metabolic management. Type 2 diabetes is a massive player here. What's the mechanism of damage?
It's primarily chronic hyperglycemia, so high blood sugar. It causes this widespread inflammation and microvascular damage all over the body, including the brain. Stringent glycemic control is vital.
And the danger is quantifiable, right?
Oh, it's shocking. The risk of stroke increases by a massive 115% for every 1% increase in HbA1c.
That's your average blood sugar measure, a direct correlation between sugar control and physical damage.
We also have to mention dyslipidemia, unhealthy fats in the blood. Elevated LDL cholesterol is consistently linked with increased risk, so aggressive reduction, often targeting below 70 milli-GDL, is critical. I mean, if your pipes are clean, your brain gets fed.
Okay. And finally, within this vascular imperative, we've got neurotoxic elimination. Let's just state this plainly. Smoking cessation is non-negotiable.
It is the most effective singular intervention for a smoker. And the remarkable part is the brain's capacity for recovery. Stopping smoking is thought to reduce the dementia risk right back down to the level of non-smokers.
Even for older adults who've smoked for decades.
Even then.
Yeah, and what about alcohol? What are the specific evidence-based moderation guidelines?
The guidelines are very precise because excess consumption increases risk through blood pressure issues and direct brain injury. For women of all ages and all adults 65 and older, it's no more than 1 standard drink per day, or 7 per week.
Okay.
For men under 65, it's a max of 2 per day, or 14 per week. Exceeding those limits just introduces risk without any benefit.
Okay, let's shift to the pillars that fuel the system. Fuel and movement. This is where we maximize neuroplasticity through daily action. With physical activity, what are the minimum guidelines we need for real brain health benefits?
You need effortful movement. The sources specify a minimum of 150 minutes per week of moderate-intensity aerobic activity.
So that's brisk walking, gardening, active chores.
Right. Or 75 minutes of vigorous activity like running. But critically, you also need muscle-strengthening activities on at least 2 days per week.
You know, a lot of people hear 150 minutes and it sounds overwhelming, but that's just 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
Exactly.
So how does that physical effort actually translate into protection inside the skull?
Well, this is where the molecular connection gets really fascinating. Regular long-term exercise significantly boosts brain-derived neurotrophic factor BDNF.
Right, and BDNF is basically, it's like fertilizer for your brain.
That's a perfect analogy. It is vital for neuronal growth, for survival, and for synaptic plasticity. Physical activity enhances the creation of new neurons.
I noticed this really interesting metabolic link in the sources about lactate. Why is lactate a byproduct of muscle effort important for the brain?
So lactate, which is released from muscle during effortful activity, it acts as a kind of messenger. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and the lactate levels in your blood correlate positively with BDNF levels.
Sure.
This is why, light chores don't quite cut it. Your brain needs that physiological signal from elevated lactate, which means getting your heart rate up, to literally build new resilient pathways. The harder the muscle works, the better the neurological payoff.
So the effort is quantifiable. You push your body to generate lactate, and you generate more fertilizer for your brain. Okay, let's talk optimized nutrition.
Yeah.
How much protection can a specific diet really offer?
A significant amount. Adopting a healthy eating pattern and doing it consistently can reduce overall dementia risk by up to 53%.
53%. That's not marginal. That is a huge potential reduction.
It's massive. And the diet that's specifically engineered for this is the MIND diet.
The MIND diet.
Correct. It's ingenious because it fuses the anti-inflammatory properties of the Mediterranean diet with the vascular protective benefits of the DAS diet. It's a very clear neuroprotective blueprint.
So for the listener who wants to start tomorrow, what are the actionable, non-negotiable specifics they should maximize?
The focus is on maximizing two food groups for their concentrated antioxidants. You should aim for a minimum of 6 or more servings of green leafy vegetables per week
6 plus.
and 2 or more servings of berries per week. Use olive oil as your main fat source and aim for 3 or more whole grain servings every day.
And on the flip side, what are we rigorously limiting? Because the restriction is just as important as the additions.
It is. Rigorous limitation of saturated fats and sugars is mandatory. You have to limit butter or margarine to once a day or even less. Keep pastries and sweets to every other day and place really strict limits on fried foods and cheese.
And why is that restriction so crucial?
Because a high-fat diet can actually lower those crucial BDNF levels we just talked about.
So it undermines the exercise.
It completely undermines the neuroplasticity benefits you worked so hard for. It's a critical feedback loop.
Okay, moving to our final set of pillars. Sleep and sensory correction. Sleep is so often seen as optional, but the sources treat it as a critical maintenance phase.
It is essential maintenance. The optimal duration for quality sleep is a targeted range between 6 and 9 hours daily. Deviating outside that window is a pretty major risk factor.
Wait, 6 to 9 hours? That sounds like a massive range. If someone's hitting 6 hours of high-quality sleep consistently, is that really comparable to someone getting 9? Or are we just saying avoid the extremes?
We're saying avoid both extremes, chronic short sleep and chronic long sleep. Both have been linked to at least a doubling in dementia risk. 6 hours of quality sleep is likely functional, but the reason it's also important is the clearance hypothesis.
The glymphatic system.
Yes. Think of restorative sleep as the moment the brain's internal drain finally opens up to flush the pipes. During this phase, the glymphatic system becomes highly active, essentially washing toxic metabolic byproducts, including that harmful amyloid protein, out of the brain. If you consistently compromise that clearance cycle, those toxic byproducts just start building up.
Which brings us to a specific high-leverage intervention, treating sleep apnea.
Absolutely. Rigorous diagnosis and continuous adherence to treatment for obstructive sleep apnea, usually through PEPI therapy, like a CPAP machine, is paramount. Studies found that older adults on PEPI therapy were significantly less likely to develop AD and other forms of dementia.
And the adherence is key.
It's non-negotiable. Withdrawing the therapy might actually increase your risk, which emphasizes the need for continuous protection.
Okay, finally, let's discuss sensory health. Why does something that seems non-neurological, like untreated hearing loss, increase dementia risk?
Because it imposes a constant, wasteful cognitive strain. Untreated hearing loss forces the brain to expend excessive resources, constantly straining to fill in auditory gaps and interpret ambiguous sounds. That effort diverts cognitive reserve away from critical functions like planning or memory.
So we're taxing that finite resource of cognitive reserve just to be able to hear.
Exactly. And the numbers on intervention are incredibly motivating. Untreated hearing loss increases risk by up to 16%. But the simple use of hearing aids has been shown to reduce the rate of cognitive decline in older adults by almost 50% over a 3-year period.
That is a staggering return on investment.
It is. And similarly, treating vision loss, say with cataract surgery, can reverse the associated risk entirely. It brings patients right back to the same risk level as those who never developed the condition. These are highly actionable ways to conserve that precious cognitive reserve you worked so hard to build.
This whole deep dive really brings us back to that central concept of synergy. The protective effect of all 6 of these pillars, it's just vastly greater when they're all pursued at the same time.
That's the ultimate takeaway. A healthy diet supports your vascular function, which enables better physical activity, which in turn enhances your sleep. And all 3 of those boost your cognitive reserve. The goal isn't a temporary health kick.
Right.
It's a permanent, habitual shift designed for cumulative, lifelong protection.
Our sources clearly show that dementia is a process that's significantly influenced by the choices you make every single day, across your entire lifespan. The resilience of your brain is, to a huge degree, in your hands.
And if we connect this back, the persistence of these protective effects, like that 7-year benefit from blood pressure control, it suggests that early, aggressive protection is just crucial to slowing the damage. And since cognitive reserve accumulation in both early and late life had the greatest effect, well, that raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider right now.
What is one complex, novel activity you can commit to learning today to start building your reserve capacity? Pick something that really pushes you past your comfort zone and start building that resilience now.
We hope this deep dive gives you the actionable knowledge and, the motivation to take those necessary next steps.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.